Hi, everybody. Welcome to Away Games of Chicago Cubs podcast. I'm Kevin McCaffrey, and Adam Amawala is here too. Hi, Adam.
Hello. It's nice to be a little less doom and gloom today, huh?
It is a little less doom and gloom. Since we last were here, the Cubs have signed some dudes. They signed their main dude, which was the number 4 shortstop on the market, Dansby Swanson. 7 years, $177 million. So we have the starting middle infield of Dansby Swanson and Nico Hoerner probably shifting over to second, at least for next year. How are you feeling about it? How did you react when you heard the news?
I feel like we've been put through so much that I wasn't able to be as excited as I would have if it had happened sooner. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does make sense because I think the emotional journey of it was if the Cubs really wanted, if they preferred Dansby Swanson over the others.
Right.
I mean, it's a weird choice, I guess. I mean, they like paying less money for less years, and that is certainly what happened. The dollars per year is very close to what all the other shortstops did, but the years were less.
Right.
7 years for Swanson when it was 13 for Correa and 11 for Trey Turner and 11 for Xander Bogaerts. So yeah, I think it was just like they had to get Swanson, otherwise the offseason is like it would be impossible to make it a success. Right. And now I think it's a thing where it's like I almost think the vibes in Cubland, I want to be happy about getting a good player, and Dansby Swanson is certainly that, and good defense up the middle, like probably the best defense in the league up the middle if you are talking about Bellinger and center and Nico and Dansby at those positions. But I mean, I think the vibes are almost like bizarrely good in Cubland now because they're like, yeah, we got someone just because we thought we'd maybe get nothing. And so it's like, it's good. It's good. I don't know that the team is better than they were last year yet, but
no, not yet. I think they still, if they continue to add, I think there's a shot that with the additions we've made, we at least have a chance at the wild card. But it does feel, I think most of us Cubs fans feel like a little abused, and it's like, well, if you've been treating me like shit for all this time and then you buy me flowers, I guess I still appreciate the flowers, but I'm still a little suspicious. But I guess it was kind of a tell when the Ricketts announced that they would be doing a panel at the Cubs convention, because not that they won't still get shit, I think they will, but I think now that they actually went out and spent some money, and assuming they do more between now and a month from now, like I think so. And have the Cubs officially re-signed Smyly?
We haven't seen the terms yet. So Drew Smyly also, it seems, it's been reported by multiple people that Drew Smyly will be coming back. I haven't seen for how many years or what the money is, but that's a really good addition. I mean, I think it's easy to overlook how good Smyly was last year.
Totally, and very much like towards the end of the year, he was peaking. So, I guess the names that we've heard linked to the Cubs now are like Tucker Barnhart as catcher potentially, Trey Mancini, Michael Conforto, you see being thrown around a lot. Who of the people out there remaining either via trade or free agency, who do you think the Cubs can get? Who do you want them to get?
I mean, it seems like Trey Mancini is the one that's getting the most talk right now, and I like Trey Mancini for a lot of reasons. He seems like a genuinely good dude. Like, everyone loved him in Baltimore. He seems like a great clubhouse guy. He's a Notre Dame guy. I was raised on Notre Dame. My parents went there, so he's a guy I've been aware of since his college days, and he overcame cancer too. So I mean, this is a guy who's been through a lot, and a good story. As far as what he's going to bring offensively, I think like people are thinking of several years ago when he was showing a lot of power. So in 2019, he had 35 homers, had an OPS of 899. These are great numbers, but that was before he got sick, and then he did not play in 2020. And since then, he just hasn't hit like that. Last year combined between Baltimore and Houston, his OPS plus ended up being 101, so 1% above league above league average. So when you're talking about bringing Trey Mancini as like the bat to really solidify this offense, I don't really see it there. But that is, I guess you'd be hoping he's another year removed from recovery, and that should help. But also, he'll be 31, which is young in real life, but not the youngest in in baseball life.
Well, and I believe he also had like a atrociously bad postseason, right?
I
Like
think so
zero
too.
hits or one hit. Yeah.
Yeah, he really just generally struggled in Houston too. Once he played 51 games in Houston, hit 176, on base percentage of 258, and slugged. I mean, it shouldn't even be called a
Right.
slugging percentage at
Yeah.
364. We're talking Nicky Madrigal numbers around
Oh
there,
God.
So I mean, maybe he's a lot healthier, I'd assume, but I it's hard to be super excited about that when the offense is still, I would say, a little worse than it was at the end of last
Right.
year. Right now, losing
Yeah.
Contreras, bringing in Swanson and Bellinger.
Right. Yeah, that's one for Mancini where like when you get the World Series ring, you're like, you guys sure? I almost feel bad.
Yeah, right. It was fun to hang out with you guys and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as far as the guys who are out there right now who could make the most difference, I would say is probably Michael Conforto. So he's a guy whose
Yeah.
OPS plus is for his career is 124. That's 24% better than league average. Last year, or the last year he played was 2021. He missed 2022 with injury, and weirdly, just like hadn't signed anywhere.
Right.
But yeah, 2021 was a down year, but the year before that, he was great. I mean, it was he's been a good hitter for most of his career. So I think if
Right.
you maybe get a Conforto on a bounce back, that to me that's probably the biggest thing left to do with this offense.
Yeah, and much like Bellinger, he would presumably be signing on a 1 year deal to go out and prove himself to get back into free agency. And like that's fine if we're bridging. I don't think any of us have any issues with us like bridging the gap with certain players. Like, yeah, it maybe would have been better to go out and sign a Turner or Bogarts or Correa to a longer term deal for like that guy. But for the Bellingers of the world, Confortos of the world, any of these players, like I think it's fine to hope that Pete Armstrong is good 2 years from now
Yeah.
and say we're going to go out and get some guys who have a lot to prove and are hopefully going to help us compete right now, even if they're not part of the long term future. So yeah, I would have no problem with it. And I think, I guess in that scenario, you would probably have Bellinger bouncing between outfield and first base, right?
Yeah, it's which Bellinger certainly has that ability. Conforto's not a guy who you'd probably want, especially coming off an injury, probably want playing in center field. Maybe there's been times that he could get by in center field, but he's more of a corner outfield type. So I think that makes the fit for Conforto a little bit weird because you'd think DHing would probably be most of what he does, and then giving Happ a day off and left occasionally, giving Suzuki a day off and right occasionally,
Right.
that kind of thing. So the positional fits a little weird and clunky, but
Mhm.
also, I mean, at this, if you make a lineup, go ahead, play this little game at home. Write out the Cubs lineup right now. You just need another bat that's for real in there,
Right.
because it looks kind of goofy.
Well, and I do, the whole run prevention thing is true, and that was a big part of why the Cubs were so successful in 2016. But it wasn't only that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like they weren't going to win a World Series just by having a good defense. That was a component of how they beat teams. But like, if we think that this team is going to win a wild card by winning a bunch of games 3-2, I think we're being a little naive.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you can see if you add one more significant offensive piece here, and also there's other bats out there that like Evan Longoria is still out there as well, who had a little bit of a bounce back last year in San Francisco. So there's still guys where you could sort of marginally improve the offense here to a point where you'd start feeling good about it. I should say the rotation should be better with Jamison Tyone in here. The rotation should also be better than it was last year, and most of the rest of the guys you'd expect to be improving because they're younger for the most part.
How would you line up the rotation right now?
I think Stroman 1, Steele 2, Tyone 3, I think is what you do, and then probably Smyly and Hendricks right after that. Smyly 4, if you're going like right left, which they like doing sometimes, then Smyly 4, Hendricks 5, and then guys are going to miss starts through the year, and that's where you start sneaking in the Wesneskis, and I think right now. Adrian Sampson couldn't do much more than he did at the end of the last year to get into the rotation. He pitched really well. So, Sampson and Wisniewski are probably your 6-7 starters right now.
Right. Yeah, and we saw something recently about Adbert Alzolay saying like, you know what, I think it's probably time for me to be in the bullpen, which maybe that can be a place where he can be useful and stay healthy.
Totally. I didn't see that. He actively said that.
Yeah, it just kind of seemed like a recognition of like what's
Yeah.
gone wrong for him so far, and to be like, maybe in more limited doses that'll allow me to stay healthier.
I think that's great. And you're talking about Alzolay, who could come in and be like a real effective weapon for a couple innings at a time out of the bullpen. I
Right.
think is it could be a cool way to use him um,
Right.
going
Now,
forward.
do we think like is Boxberger going to be the closer?
I mean, it's Wick or Boxberger. I mean, Boxberger is definitely the most experienced closer
Right.
as of
And
right now.
Wick struggled a lot down the stretch last year.
He did. So, I mean, it feels like it's going to be a piece together who the closer is, depending
Right.
on the day kind of a situation. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Cubs sign another veteran 1 year reliever type deal.
Maybe our boy Ethan Roberts is going to be closing by the end of the year. That'd be pretty sweet.
That would be great. He's, it seems like he's recovering. I'm following him on social media. Ethan Roberts seems to be getting really into baseball cards, which is funny.
Oh.
It's pretty fun for a guy who's like in the league to be such a
Right.
baseball card collector. But he seems to be like, from everything I've seen, healthy and recovering and feeling pretty good. So, yeah, hopefully he should be making his way back into the bullpen in the mid-year or in the second part of this year.
I mean, it seems like kind of futile to even ask this because I do think the Cubs are going to add more pieces. But like, if the Cubs were to go into next year with the exact roster they have at this moment, what do we think they are? Like a 500 team?
I think you're approaching 500, baby. Get ramp up that
Getting there.
excitement, chase that 81st game. Yeah, I think that's what it is right now. You just, and then if it's whatever happens offensively from this point, like you just need things to break right to be any better than that. Like, because you need
Right.
things to break right with Bellinger, it needs to be better, and it's very hard to be confident about that. Even if you sign a Conforto, who has the biggest ceiling of any offensive player who's still out there, you still need a bounce back for that to happen. It's hard to feel super solid about it. One sneaky interesting thing is that Rafael Devers apparently is far apart from with the Red Sox on extension talks, and Devers is like probably in next year's free agent class. The big fishes are going to be Shohei Ohtani, obviously. Manny Machado is probably going to opt out, and Rafael Devers, who will only be like 26, basically, or who just turned 26.
Right.
So, I mean, it's if you're like Hoyer has not made the big impact trade, at the major league level yet, but Rafael Devers might be. Maybe that's a guy to keep an eye on, because that would be something that would significantly change the lineup. It would take a big return to get him, and you'd probably only want to do the deal if you were confident you could extend him after that. But some rumblings out there.
Now, what do you think it would take to get a Devers? Like, would they want a package of both major league and minor league talent, you think? Or just like
Yeah.
all of your top prospects?
It's really hard. It's hard to tell because it's just 1 year right now, and we've seen how surprisingly small the returns can be on 1 year deals. So I don't know. I
Right.
don't know if that's a thing where more of a deal where you kind of monitor it towards the trade deadline and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it would take some of your top end farm right now. I would think. I mean, you'd have to get comfortable losing. The Cubs have three main outfield prospects right now, right? You'd say Brendan Davis, PCA, and Kevin Alcantara, and I guess you could throw Owen Casey in there too. But I mean, probably one of those names would be involved,
Right.
and then you'd be talking about dealing some pitchers too. But I mean, at some point, you got to find another star. You have to bring in another offensive star, and those three names, we should probably be excited or trying to be excited about the offseason we're having right now before talking about next year's. But I guess that's just part
Right.
of the building process. Is it ain't done yet,
Right. Yeah, I mean, what the Cubs have done in signing Swanson, it reminds me of that old classic Chris Rock bit about like, what do you want, a cookie for doing something that you were supposed to do? Like, this is the expectation. You should, any scenario in which the Cubs or any big market team are going into a season saying the only way we're really going to be competitive realistically is if everything breaks right, then you're not doing enough to put your team in a good position.
I totally agree, and like I'm trying. I've been doing a thing lately where I'm trying to keep myself from being too negative, and I am happy that Dansby Swanson is on the team. He was my fourth choice of the four shortstops this year.
Yeah.
Okay, but like you said, it is. I'm happy. I'm happy he's here. since that's the position the Cubs put themselves in, I'm happy that it happened. It's better that it did than it didn't. But exactly what you're saying is also correct. What they've done is, I think you'd have to say, the bare minimum for a major market team this offseason. It is the bare minimum. We said they had to get one of the 4 shortstops. Well, they got the 4th best one, and I'm happy to have them, but that is the minimum acceptable thing. I mean, we're C-minusing our way through this, right? Or B-minusing if you want to be optimistic, whatever. But we're and like I've heard enough about soft factors with catching, this fairy dust mystical stuff that we can't possibly quantify with numbers or publicly know why anyone is good at catching. I'm pretty sure pitchers pitch. Like they have to, like we have to give the pitchers credit for being good pitchers or bad pitchers at some point. So I guess that's just to say, like, our catching situation is worse. You know, Wilson Contreras is gone. It's worse, no matter who they get from this point. But yeah, hey man, the in front of the catcher, I'm very excited about that middle defense, I guess.
Who else do you think is a viable option at catcher for the Cubs to go out and sign?
It's a great question. It's a great question, and I think my full answer is I don't give a shit. Like, we've reached the point with catchers where there's nothing, anyone left in the catching market, signing any one of them just tells you that Yan Gomes is the starter. Like, Tucker Barnhart does not hit. I think he won a Gold Glove, I want to say. I will look that up real quick. But if you look at his metrics, like, the arm strength is not great. The pop time's not amazing. The framing has gone up and down, but I think was in like the 40th percentile recently. You're talking about a guy whose OPS was 64 last year, 36% below league average, with wins above replacement of 0.1 and a career wins above replacement of 7.2. But he's got the rep. He's got a reputation. He's got 2 Gold Gloves. It's been a few years since he won one, but you know, I think, but also it's like I can't get worked up about a backup catcher. The way I'm worked up is that I think our starting catcher should have been the backup, and Yan Gomes is fine, but whoever's out there, and it seems like they've been mostly connected to Tucker Barnhart, Roberto Perez, I believe, formerly of Cleveland, is someone who's also out there, has a good defensive reputation. Yeah, you know, I guess Perez is better. I don't know.
And I like Yan Gomes, but I feel like Yan Gomes is a perfect example of the Cubs doing that thing where they make the right move, but too late. Like, the Cubs could have used a Yan Gomes a few years ago and didn't sign one.
Yeah, and I really like how the Cubs handled the catching situation last year, and I think that's just what we wanted to do again. You know, obviously, right. But that ship has sailed down the river to St. Louis. So. Yeah, but how are you feeling about Dansby? What was like, generally speaking?
I really like Dansby a lot. Dansby is one of the guys that I've like targeted as a fantasy player in the past few years, and has almost always almost always paid off for me. We talked to our buddy Ken Schultz about this a little bit, and perhaps it's a rationalization because we didn't get him, but I do not and have never really liked Carlos Correa, so. While I would have been excited for the Cubs to get him, it would have been an effort for me to cheer for him. Dansby, I really like a lot. Like, if you asked me who I wanted of the 4 shortstops, I still would have said like probably Turner, Bogarts, and then I mean, Correa is better than Swanson. There's no debate about it. But like in terms of actual human beings that I would like to root for, I'm excited about it, and I do think that there's a chance that his skill set plays well at Wrigley hitting wise. I think he has pretty good career stats at Wrigley, and defensively, I mean, when you have he and Nico up the middle, the Cubs have not had anything similar to that since probably Russell and Javi, right?
Yeah, I guess in the brief time when it was Javi and Nico, a little bit, right, in the middle.
Where is Madrigal? Is he alive? Where does he play?
Madrigal is alive. I think he's going to be riding that pine a bit. And also the Cubs they're at the 40-man roster is now going to be at 41. I think that's why Drew Smyly's terms have not been announced. So the Cubs are going to have to make some move on the fringes. Nick Madrigal can be optioned down to the minors next year as well. He has another option year. So you could see the Cubs sort of putting him on that Iowa shuttle a little bit. He could be involved in a trade somehow going forward. But yeah, I think otherwise you're going to see him sort of as a contact guy off the bench, a little Tommy La Stella-esque, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's not it doesn't make that Kimbrel return look all that great at this point. So
Is there any case to be made for a shorter year deal having been the right move, or do you think fuck that, it's not my money, they should have just gotten whoever they wanted?
I think the thing is, I think any one of the other shortstops would have more solved your offensive issues. Like, so it would have been
Right.
solving two problems with that. And it's, yeah, it's the money per year as far as how much of your salary cap basically it takes up was about the same across the board. It's just, yeah, I mean, I guess it's good to not have Swanson on the books for, I guess, what will be at that point his like 33 through 37, 38-year-old seasons like the other guys
Right.
would have been. So, it's fine. It's just like you just got to hope Dansby Swanson's offense is more like last year, where he's only had two above average offensive years in the majors, and one was 2020 was the COVID year, so the shortened year. But last year, to give you guys his numbers, 25 homers, 96 RBIs, 18 stolen bases. Those are good things. Honestly, what you're looking at in Dansby Swanson is a kind of Javi-esque player. He's got power, speed, and defense, and strikes out a lot. So, you know.
I mean, he's no Shelby Miller, but
He's no Shelby Miller, that's for sure. Like
that was the trade, right?
Yeah, he was traded for. Yeah, it was Shelby, and it was and I think it was him and Ender Inciarte and another guy and some pitcher for Shelby Miller. So rough deal, Arizona. But
yeah, not since the James Shields deal have we seen something quite that rough.
yes, yeah, true that. And the last thing is Jameson Taillon did sort of his first interview with people, and he seems excited to be here. Which, I mean,
Now, did he grow up a Cubs fan, or did he just have a photo of him as a child with a Cubs hat?
I think he had a photo of himself. He said he actually, I believe he said he grew up an Astros fan, but saw a lot of Cubs games on WGN growing up. So yeah.
Well, I tell you what, if Mancini does sign, I would imagine there would be some bonding there between Mancini and Taillon in the same way that like Lester and Rizzo had that shared common experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good call. They're both cancer survivors as well. And also for what it's worth, Taillon said that Rizzo was telling him that his sources with the Cubs said that they were interested in signing him because Rizzo and Taillon played together last year, and then Taillon said a bunch of really nice things about playing with Anthony Rizzo that just made me wish he was still here. But Taillon seems like a cool guy and will be a fun dude to root for.
Yeah, and obviously Taillon has pitched at Wrigley a lot. He spent most of his career with the Pirates, and said something about how there's nothing better than a afternoon game in the summer at Wrigley, and I would tend to agree. But I would say in terms of how I felt last week versus this week, I feel less stupid to still be a Cubs fan. Is that a fair way to say
Yeah,
it?
sure. Yeah, it's like, look, this year's going to have some interesting baseball. It is, and it's like it's slowly moving in a better direction. And, I do genuinely believe it will get better from here. I just want it to happen more quickly, is all.
I mean, it's a pretty bleak time in Chicago sports.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're more tied into the Bulls than I am, but that's been a bummer lately, right?
I think they gotta blow it up. I'm sad to say it, but I mean, the pieces that you could get trading like DeRozan and Vucevic to the Lakers. I mean, the Levine you have on a max deal, so I don't really know what you do with him. But it's pretty sad to say that the 3-win Bears are the team that I have the most optimism about in the next couple of years.
And it's not even close. I'm excited for the Bears next year already. I'm in. Let's get that high draft pick is fun. The cap space is fun. I'm into it.
Yeah. Did you do fantasy football this year?
I did. I'm in the semis right now, and I
nice. Me too.
Yeah, I'm into. I need this. I need to be. My league's been going for 17 years. I'm the commissioner of it with some good friends. Yeah. I'm the only 3-time champ. Got to become the only 4-time champ, and I just fucking need the money at this point. So,
I mean, four championships in 17 years. Who are you? The Red Sox?
Yeah, basically, baby. I'm no rebuilding years over here.
What's your fantasy team name? Is it McCaffrey related?
Nope, it is usually I'll name it after someone on the team. So I'm Smark Andrews. Smark is a wrestling term for a
Oh,
type of fan, smart marks. Smark Andrews and the WAPA Freaks, WAPA Freaks. And what that is a reference to is a character my wife plays on a certain radio show, the most famous radio show in the world. That's all I'll say. That my wife has done on there. There's a character who was yelling at my wife on the phone, calling her a wussy ass, pussy ass freak. So that's what that stands for.
amazing.
So what's your team name?
My team name didn't work out that well. It's Easy Mooney in honor of Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, not the man. Last couple years in Bears world, cursed wide receiver year. The number one
Truly.
wide receiver is a cursed thing. Allen Robinson had that rough year, and
Yeah.
Mooney not really.
But at least Kevin White had a great career.
Yes.
But yeah, I did ultimately have to drop. I was holding Mooney on the IR even once he was done for the season, just out of his namesake. But I had to drop him. But I was saved by a last minute Joe Burrow touchdown, so made it to the second round. But now the irony is, I'm going up against the guy who picked up Justin Fields when I dropped him 5 games into the season, and that would be a real slap in the face.
That's brutal. That's brutal. Yeah,
But if it's a snow game, perhaps there won't be big yardage.
that's true. Yeah.
Or Fields will run for 300 yards. You can say.
Yes, Fields will set every record in the books. Yeah. I guess the last thing to plug, if it would be amazing if someone's listening to this and then goes to your show tonight. That based on
It
that
would be amazing, yeah.
But Adam is headlining in Stand Up New York this evening as we release this. This is December 20th, and I'll be dropping in and doing a spot there as well tonight.
Yeah, and I'll also be headlining the Stress Factory in New Jersey on Friday for two shows, which is pretty exciting. So if we somehow have any New Jersey listeners, come out. The last thing I'll say also is that Kevin and Jamie sent me a lovely Christmas card, and on that card there was a mention of the fact that the card itself cost more money than what the Ricketts have spent in the past few years. And I believe it might have been written before the Swanson signing. Even if it wasn't, it's still mostly true.
It was, but it's close. And you know, at Christmas, it's the thought and sentiment that counts, and that's what it is.
And my friend Amy, who hooked up the experience where Ken and I got to go on the field at Wrigley, who was a season ticket holder for the Cubs. I don't believe she renewed. Wow, go figure. She sent me a screenshot the other day. She's like, interesting thing on LinkedIn. And it was a job posting for the Cubs needing people to sell season tickets. So pretty fitting, huh?
Hey guys, get out, go out and get a job. Get a join the Cubs and start convincing people to actually say yes, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other parting thoughts?
No, I'm gonna see if I still have a voice in 8 hours to do this comedy show, and otherwise, I don't know. How do you want to do my jokes? Can I just like give you a set list and you can do it for me, and I'll stand there and you'll like kind of talk next to me?
Yeah, you just Cyrano de Bergerac me a little bit. Get the
Exactly.
Yeah, I a genuine co-headlining experience. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Thanks for listening, everybody. At Away Games Pod on all the things, and we'll catch you next week.